Picture this. You're walking through someone's backyard. Grass, a few trees, maybe a garden, and then the ground opens up because what looks like a hill is actually a house. No roof sticking up, no walls in sight, just earth, grass, and a door that leads 20 feet underground into a full, livable home with a kitchen, a bedroom, even a swimming pool. This isn't a bunker. It isn't science fiction. It's a real, growing movement. People all over the world are choosing to vanish underground on purpose. And by the end of this video, you're going to see the actual homes, the actual price tags, and the actual reasons families are doing this. Stick around, because near the end, I'm going to show you an underground community where people have been living completely off-grid for over 50 years, and what their life actually looks like day to day. Before we go under, literally, hit subscribe and tap the bell, because we're covering hidden and unusual homes like this every week, and you don't want to miss what's coming. Okay, let's go underground. So let's start with the basics, because most people picture this wrong. Architects don't really call these underground houses. The proper term is earth-sheltered or earth berm homes. That means the structure is partially, or in some cases completely, built into the ground, with soil acting as a natural wall, a natural insulator, and sometimes even a roof you can walk on, plant a garden on, or graze a goat on, if that's your thing. There are actually a few different styles. Some homes are dug straight into the side of a hill, with only one wall exposed to the outside, usually a glass front that faces the sun. That's called a berm design. Others are built completely flat, below grade, and then covered entirely in earth, with skylights or light wells poking up through the ground to let sunlight in. And then there's a hybrid style, like the famous Earthship homes we'll get into shortly, where the back and sides are packed into earth, but the entire front is glass, creating a kind of greenhouse effect. Now here's the part that surprises people the most. These are not damp, dark caves. That stereotype is outdated. Modern earth-sheltered homes use waterproof membranes wrapped around the structure, engineered drainage systems that pull water away from the walls, and mechanical ventilation systems that constantly cycle fresh air in and stale air out. Done properly, the humidity and air quality inside an earth-sheltered home can be just as good, sometimes better, than a conventional house, because the thick earth walls buffer out temperature swings that normally cause condensation problems. The real magic here is something called thermal mass. A few feet below the surface, soil temperature stays remarkably stable year-round, regardless of whether it's a blazing hot July or a freezing January. Build your walls against that stable layer of earth, and your home barely notices the seasons change. That's not a marketing gimmick. It's basic thermodynamics, and it's the entire reason this style of building has survived in different forms for centuries. So why would anyone choose to bury their house? Let's go through the real reasons, one at a time. Reason 1, energy efficiency. Because the surrounding earth stays at a near constant temperature, these homes need dramatically less heating in winter and cooling in summer. Some underground home builders advertise energy savings of up to 70 to 85% on HVAC costs. Now, I want to be honest with you. That's a vendor claim, not an independently verified universal number, and your actual savings depend heavily on your climate, your design, and how well the build is executed. But the underlying physics, earth as insulation, is well-established engineering, and homeowners in these builds consistently report noticeably lower utility bills, especially in climates with harsh winters or brutal summers. Reason 2, disaster resistance. A home wrapped in several feet of earth is naturally more resistant to high winds, hailstorms, and tornadoes because there's simply less exposed structure for those forces to grab onto. In wildfire-prone regions, earth shelter design can also reduce the risk of flame contact compared to a fully exposed wood frame home. It's not indestructible. Nothing is, but it's a meaningfully different risk profile. Reason 3, privacy and noise. When your walls are packed earth instead of drywall and studs, sound just doesn't travel the same way. No traffic noise. No barking dogs 3 yards over. No nosy neighbors peeking through a window. It's about as close to true silence as residential construction gets. Reason 4, and this is the one almost nobody expects, land preservation. Because the roof is often planted with grass, wildflowers, or even small trees, the natural landscape barely changes. From above or from a distance, it can look like nothing was ever built there. For people who want to live somewhere beautiful without visually disrupting that beauty, this is a huge draw. And there's a fifth reason that's become more common in recent years: energy independence and self-sufficiency. A lot of people building these homes today aren't just doing it for the insulation. They're pairing it with solar power, rainwater collection, and off-grid systems to create a home that barely depends on the outside world at all. Which brings us to arguably the most famous underground housing movement on the planet. If you spend any time online looking at underground or off-grid homes, you've probably seen these strange curved half-buried structures out in the New Mexico desert, with car tires stacked into walls and glass bottles embedded like stained glass windows. These are called Earthships, and the story behind them is honestly wild. Back in 1971, an architect named Michael Reynolds, a graduate of the University of Cincinnati, got frustrated with how wasteful conventional construction was. So he started building homes out of garbage. Literally, used tires packed with compacted earth became load-bearing, thermally massive walls. Aluminum cans and glass bottles became decorative bricks. He famously said there was no garbage until modern man, meaning nature doesn't produce waste, only humans do. And his solution was to build shelter directly out of what we throw away. Over the following decades, Reynolds refined the concept into what's now called Earthship biotecture, built around 6 core principles: natural and recycled materials, thermal and solar heating and cooling, solar and wind-generated electricity, rainwater harvesting, contained sewage treatment, and even indoor food production using gray water. In other words, a home designed to make its own power, catch its own water, treat its own waste, and grow some of its own food. Today, the largest Earthship community in the world sits on a high desert mesa outside Taos, called the Greater World Community. Most of these homes are single-story, long and narrow, bermed into the earth on one side with a wall of glass facing south to soak up sunlight. From the north, approaching by road, many of them are almost invisible. You might just see a small turret or a windmill poking up, and otherwise assume you're looking at nothing but desert. Now let's talk real numbers, because this is where a lot of videos on this topic get vague, and I want to give you the honest picture. A professionally built Earthship typically runs $300 to $400 per square foot, which usually lands somewhere between $450,000 and $1 million for a full turnkey home, depending on size and finish. For comparison, homes specifically in the Taos Earthship community often trade in the $350,000 to $650,000 range depending on size, age, and how updated the solar and water systems are. If you go the DIY route, building it yourself using Earthship biotecture's published designs, cost can drop to around $150 per square foot or less, but that comes with a serious catch: labor. A 1,500 square foot Earthship typically requires 800 to 1,200 tires, and each tire takes 45 minutes to an hour to properly pack with compacted earth using 2 people. Builders on off-grid forums have documented projects that took 3 to 5 years of hands-on labor to finish. And here's something a lot of enthusiastic videos leave out: resale value. One published analysis found that Earthships resell for an average of around $191 per square foot, while many owners spent $225 or more per square foot to build on a 1,700 square foot home. That gap can mean a real-world loss of nearly $58,000 if you ever decide to sell. These homes are also considered experimental architecture in most places, which means financing through a traditional mortgage lender can be difficult or impossible. Many buyers pay cash or use specialized alternative lenders. Permitting is its own adventure too. New Mexico is uniquely friendly to this style of build thanks to a law called the Sustainable Development Testing Site Act, which gives Earthships a legal pathway that most states simply don't have. In states like Colorado, Wyoming, Nevada, and Arizona, permitting is possible but requires real effort, often 6 to 18 months of county-level approval. In much of the Pacific Northwest, the Midwest, and the Southeast, it ranges from difficult to functionally impossible, because many building codes have no classification at all for tire and earth construction. Roughly half of Earthship builders report their permitting process alone took 1 to 2 years and cost $25,000 to $30,000. There's also an ongoing, honest debate about the tires themselves. Reynolds' position is that used tires have already off-gassed most of their volatile compounds by the time they're pulled from landfills for reuse. Not everyone agrees. Actor Dennis Weaver, who built and lived in a famous ship-style home, reportedly moved out citing concerns about fumes. Most builders today accept the risk as minimal, but for anyone genuinely worried about it, there's a hybrid option, earth-bag construction, which uses polypropylene bags instead of tires and delivers similar thermal mass without the tire-specific concerns. And climate matters more than most people realize. Earthship design was essentially perfected for Taos, a high-altitude desert with over 300 sunny days a year, which is exactly what these homes need to properly charge their thermal mass through the glass wall. Move that same design to the cloudy Pacific Northwest, a humid southeastern summer, or a Midwest winter with weeks of overcast skies, and performance drops significantly. Builders outside the arid Southwest are generally advised to plan for supplemental heating. None of this means Earthships are a bad idea. Thousands of people are living happily and sustainably in them right now, some for decades. It just means, like any unconventional build, the real story is more complicated and more interesting than a 30-second clip can capture. Now let's swing completely in the opposite direction, because underground living isn't just an off-grid, DIY, homesteader thing. Some of the most expensive private homes on Earth are hidden underground too. There's a property that, from the street, looks like a completely ordinary two-story house. Nothing unusual at all. But hidden beneath it sits a livable space nearly 26 feet below ground. A full second home, complete with a kitchen, 3 bathrooms, a laundry room, guest rooms, a swimming pool, and a sauna. It was designed and built decades ago by architect Jay Swayze for a private businessman, and the lighting inside was engineered to mimic sunrise, sunset, and even a starry night sky on the ceiling, so residents could get some semblance of a natural day-night cycle despite being completely enclosed. It remains one of the most elaborate private underground homes ever constructed, and to this day, most people driving past it have absolutely no idea what's underneath their feet. Then there's Villa Vals, tucked into a mountainside in the Swiss village of Vals. 2 architecture firms collaborated on this one, with a very specific goal: build a home close to Val's famous thermal baths, without disrupting the view of the Alps for anyone else in the village. Instead of building up, they built in. You can enter through a wide, elliptical opening cut directly into the hillside, or through a separate underground entrance connected to a nearby barn. From most angles, all you see is a mountain. The house simply doesn't register as a house at all. What both of these examples show is that earth shelter design isn't just a budget-conscious or survivalist choice. It's also become a legitimate architectural statement, chosen by people who could build anything they wanted, anywhere, and specifically chose to disappear into the landscape instead of dominating it. Okay, so multi-million-dollar hidden villas and 5-year DIY tire packing projects are fascinating. But what about regular people who just like the concept? That's actually where the tiny house side of this trend comes in. Builders now offer smaller-scale earth berm and so-called hobbit-style tiny homes, scaled-down versions of the same insulation and design principles, without the 7-figure price tag or the multi-year labor commitment. These are popular in off-grid and homesteading communities, where the goal isn't a luxury statement piece. It's simply a smaller utility bill, more resilience during extreme weather, and a quieter, more private way to live on a modest budget. Some homesteaders even start with something much simpler, a traditional root cellar dug into a hillside, before eventually expanding into a full earth-sheltered living space. This is honestly the more realistic entry point for most people watching this video. You don't need 3 acres in the New Mexico desert and a 5-year tire packing project. A well-designed, smaller earth-sheltered structure, built with proper waterproofing and ventilation from day one, can deliver most of the same core benefits at a dramatically more approachable scale. Now, because this channel doesn't sugarcoat things, let's talk about what's genuinely difficult about living underground, because every source we've covered today circles back to the same handful of challenges. Ventilation is the big one. Without a properly engineered air exchange system, moisture and stale air build up fast in an earth-sheltered structure. This isn't optional. It's the single most important system in the entire build, and skipping it or cheaping out on it is where underground house stories go from inspiring to disastrous. Waterproofing is non-negotiable. If the membrane surrounding the structure fails, water finds its way in, and fixing a leak when you're under several feet of compacted soil is exponentially more complicated, disruptive, and expensive than patching a leak in a normal exterior wall. Natural light is limited unless the design specifically accounts for it from the start, which is why the best earth-sheltered homes lean heavily on skylights, light wells, and large glass walls or entrances cut directly into hillsides, like we saw with Villa Vals and the classic Earthship layout. Financing and permitting can be genuinely tough. Traditional mortgage lenders are often unfamiliar with earth-sheltered or alternative construction, and as we saw with the Earthship examples, permitting varies wildly by state and county, from a dedicated legal pathway in New Mexico to a multi-year uphill battle in much of the rest of the country. And climate isn't universal. A design that performs beautifully in a sun-drenched, high-altitude desert can underperform significantly in a cloudy, humid, or brutally cold climate without real engineering adjustments and supplemental heating. None of these downsides are secret or hidden. They're well documented by the people actually living in these homes. The families in the Taos community who've upgraded their solar and water systems over decades will tell you themselves. It's not a fantasy lifestyle you switch into overnight. It's a genuine commitment to a different, more intentional way of living. So is disappearing underground the future of housing? Or is it just a fascinating niche for a small, adventurous slice of the population? Honestly, based on everything we just went through, it's probably both. For the family in Taos, who's been slowly upgrading their ship's battery bank for 20 years, for the homesteader digging their first root cellar this spring, and for the architect who buried a Swiss villa inside a mountain just to protect a view, earth-sheltered living solves a real, specific problem for each of them. Lower bills, more resilience, more privacy, a smaller footprint on the land. But it also demands smarter engineering, more patience, and a lot more research than a normal above-ground build ever will. This isn't a shortcut, it's a trade-off, and an informed one is the only kind worth making. Either way, next time you're walking past a quiet, grassy hill in someone's backyard, or driving past what looks like empty desert outside a small New Mexico town, maybe don't be so sure there's nothing underneath it. If this actually taught you something new today, do me a favor and subscribe. We're covering homes like this every single week, and you don't want to miss the next one. And I'm genuinely curious. After everything we just covered, the costs, the permitting headaches, the 5-year tire packing projects, would you actually live underground? Or is fresh air and a normal mortgage non-negotiable for you? Drop it in the comments. I read everyone. See you in the next video.